Hello, everyone. My name is Brendan Ciecko. I'm the founder here at Cuseum. First off, I want to thank everyone who is joining us today, as well as say thank you to our panelists. I truly hope everyone is staying safe and healthy and optimistic throughout these really difficult times. For those of you who have tuned into any of our past webinars, it's great to see you again. And for all of our newcomers, welcome. We hope that today's conversation will be insightful, helpful, and even inspirational. This is actually the 6th in a series of conversations we've facilitated on engaging audiences during coronavirus. And over the past few weeks, more than 15,000 people have joined us from all across the globe, and we're expecting over 3,000 to join us today. We've spent a lot of time discussing digital engagement, social media, marketing, and all things in between, and have been fortunate to include the voices of many amazing perspectives. But with education as the root, the underpin, and the mission of museums, I'm super excited about our guests and the topic that we'll be chatting about today. You know, as we all know, these are unprecedented and challenging times. We're all being pushed into a new way of living, a new way of working, a new way of serving our audiences, and there's no definitive playbook on how to connect to your audience during a pandemic. There's no definitive playbook on how to master remote work while creating educational programs that are geared towards serving students that have been thrown into a completely different mode of learning and reaching parents and the public who are spread thinner than anyone can imagine. And because of this, we must come together to support each other, to share ideas and these newly formed best practices, because we're ultimately building the car while we're driving it today. And it's been incredible to watch the museum and art and cultural community unite to help and support each other and their community during these past few weeks. These types of partnerships, the solidarity, the friendships, the collaboration are nothing short of essential, and they're nothing short of inspirational. And I think much of this comes down to the spirit and the necessity of collaboration. There's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And right now, collaboration is more important than it's ever been. Today's theme for the conversation is all about that, collaboration and collaborating on virtual educational programs during coronavirus. And now I'd like to introduce our special guests. So joining us today, we have Marie Vickles. Marie is the Director of Education at the Perez Art Museum, Miami, and has served in various roles within the Education Department since October of 2013. Marie also maintains an active practice as an independent curator with work on over 30 exhibitions since 2003. She has administered and organized arts, educational programs, workshops, and exhibitions across the United States and the Caribbean for over 15 years. Marie completed her studies at FIT, Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City, and Florida State University, which includes degrees in both visual arts and public administration with a minor in education. She currently serves the city of Miami as a board member for the Arts and Entertainment Council. I love that civic involvement, Maria. That's awesome. And in her work as an arts educator and cultural practitioner, she's concerned with the development of new ways to bridge the connections between creativity and community engagement, with the goal of encouraging sustainability and access for all through the arts. Thanks so much for joining us, Marie.
Thank you.
Excellent. And we also have Liz Neely. Liz is a respected, experienced designer, content strategist, and creative technologist. As an established museum professional, she's focused on integrating digital transformation to develop innovative, user-centered approaches for delivering scholarly, interpretive, and learning experiences. Liz is the curator of digital experiences at the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum in Santa Fe, New Mexico. She has held positions at the Art Institute of Chicago, the Harwood Museum, and the American Alliance of Museums, and teaches in the Museum Studies program at Johns Hopkins University. She received her MBA from Northwestern University's Kellogg School of Management with concentrations in marketing, technology, and social innovation. Thanks so much, Liz, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Had no idea you had an MBA, by the way. That's awesome. We'll have to talk about that another time. And lastly, I'm Brendan Ciecko. I'm the founder of Cuseum. I'll be your host and moderator for today's discussion. So without further ado, let's jump into some of these questions. We've been fortunate to have had a wide range of digital, social media, and marketing experts on these webinars for the past month. Each webinar, we receive a new set of questions about how social media and digital folks can collaborate effectively with museum educators during this time. I'd like to pose the same question, but from the other side. What do you as educators and curators need from your digital staff, and what have been some of the ways you've been collaborating successfully? Marie, could you start us off?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a great question. And again, thanks for having me on to this webinar. So this was just like a rapid change from a Friday to a Monday. A lot of us were told, okay, no more coming into the museum, you're at home. And we're gonna see what museum programming looks like from a virtual setting. So thinking now, if everything is like conveyed and shared in these different digital platforms that we use, whether it's our website, whether it's social media channels, I think what we're looking for as far as educators, curators, is how do we translate these ideas that we have for content now into a digital space? What are the best platforms available to us to like take our ideas and not only just communicate them well, but maybe add something to it that we never even thought was possible? And I say this just wanting to also shout out a new member that we have at our museum, Heidi Quicksilver. She just joined the museum a few weeks ago. It's like 3, maybe going on the 4th week. So Heidi, if you're out there, welcome. It's so
Hi,
great
Heidi.
to have you as part of the team, but what a time to join, right? It's kind of like, yeah, it's like the best of times and the worst of times to join. But she's coming on as our director of digital engagement, and I'm so excited to see like how she can help us take things to like the next level, because we are not at a loss for ideas. I think it's more about how do we best communicate those ideas and what platforms exist for that communication to happen.
That's great, and congratulations on the new addition to your team. I've known Heidi for a while now, and she's fantastic. So I look forward to seeing what the Perez does over the upcoming days, weeks, years. Liz, do you have any thoughts on this question? What do you need from your digital staff, and what do you think others need from their digital staff right now to collaborate successfully?
Well, it's really interesting because I'm actually a digital technologist that has a title of curator, and the O'Keeffe Museum has tried something a little different with the curatorial team, in that we have different functions instead of different topic areas that we look at. So we have a curator of fine art, a curator of education interpretation, a curator of digital experience, and then the head of research collections and services. So the idea being that we are thinking about content from all these different perspectives, from our different areas, so that we can collaborate and kind of see where expertise from digital and media can add to what we want to do in education or what we're trying to do in the galleries. So it's kind of a little bit of a different model, in that we try and kind of pull up where we decide digital is needed, or what kind of infrastructures that we need or processes in place, so that then we can kind of co-create together. So it's a little bit, it's something that's been in place for, I've been there about 2 years. And in that way, it's really about then how do we work with the other areas and best use technology to get done what we need to get done, and how we best not use it where it's not needed.
Excellent, excellent. Thanks for sharing that. And I think it is critically important to know where to and where not to use technology, because I think that, you know, to a lot of people it is a silver bullet, but the reality is, you know, it does have great value and benefit during times like this especially, but it might not be the appropriate thing for everything you want to do. So I'm glad to hear that you have a pretty clear line of sight on that topic, Liz. That's great. Marie, when we recently spoke, you expressed one of your big goals during this time as being supporting schools, teachers, and students. What are some of the ways you've gone about this? What sorts of resources are you creating, and how are you getting them into the hands of teachers and students?
Right. Yeah, so much like the work we're doing, schools also and teachers also had this rapid fire turnaround where all of a sudden everything has to be provided in a digital space. So our biggest element and the kind of like the meat of what we do within our school programs is the daily school tours. We serve up to 20,000 students per school year at the museum in our physical location. This is classrooms coming to the museum every day, hundreds of students each day. So thinking about how do we continue to try to offer this museum experience now in a virtual space, knowing it can't be really the same. It's not going to be the same. But what can we do to try to think about what does a school tour look like now to a Zoom classroom? So we have been working on this. We've had like 2 weeks now. This is our second week of successful Zoom classroom tours with a variety of ages, as young as kindergarten through high school students, students with special needs, and that focus on translating our programming into this digital sphere, not knowing how it's going to work, not knowing if it's going to work, but just being willing and open to like, let's try it out. Let's see what we can do given the limitations that we all are facing. Teachers, at least in Miami-Dade County public school systems, are also getting used to the online platforms. A lot of them are using different platforms. So just trying things out has been like our first kind of step towards making these programs possible. Knowing that we don't have all the answers, we're going to do our best, but thinking about those virtual classroom tours that are going really great so far, and also adding other resources to those tours that teachers can share with students before and after, using like interactive PowerPoint presentations like Prezzies, which are a little more dynamic. They have room for like things to move around, and then having things like on our website for download, you know, getting back to basics. Maybe it's a teacher saying, go read this video or go watch this video, write something, or read about this artist on our website. So just trying a little bit of everything to see what we do best and what we should do more of.
That's great. I love the experimental mindset of kind of dipping your toes, seeing what works for your community, and then kind of shifting gears a little. Liz, are you doing anything kind of in that vein around reaching schools and teachers and students? Is it similar or slightly different than what's going on at the Perez with Marie?
Well, the Georgia O'Keeffe Museum also had a robust kind of face-to-face programming, and what we've kind of, and I mean we collectively have looked at is what we've first began to offer are resources that they could be used by they could be used by school children, they could be used by adults. So really focusing, especially since that's what was available first, on creative activities and things to engage with O'Keeffe from anywhere and things like that. So kind of not necessarily starting with replicating the face-to-face, but thinking about putting out resources that are kind of quick engagements. And there has been then face-to-face programs that, not face-to-face, but also the education department has done handing out of art kits. And so also meeting those different needs at different levels of of what we see in the community. Of course, you know, there are museums out there that have established online learning like the NGA and with MoMA and things like that. But we're really, at least from the start, hitting it at like resources that kind of are that can engage on a lot of different audience levels.
Excellent. And we just received a really interesting question from the audience here. Someone posed a question and then over 25 people upvoted it within a couple of minutes. So it seems like it's something on a lot of people's minds. So I want to toss that in right now. We have a question from Patrick Kane at the Museum of the Grand Prairie in Illinois. How are you all managing school trips? We want to be able to offer quality educational programs to our schools, but we don't want to give away too much information and possibly encourage some local teachers not to physically visit us with their students when this all is over. Very interesting question. Who wants to jump on it first?
That'd be Marie.
Yeah, I'll take it. I actually don't think there's any danger of that happening because you really can't replicate like that in-museum experience online. You can accentuate it. You can offer something that is equally valuable, but there's nothing like standing in front of a work of art in the real. Like that's just, you know, and that museum experience for students, I don't think there's a worry of that, but I do think there's an opportunity in what you're asking, because there may in the future be groups or classes that cannot come to a museum for one reason or another, that now with the things that you might be trying in your museum in this virtual only kind of space, you may be able to actually extend your museum's reach permanently in that kind of way. So I would think of it more as like a bonus as to learning how digital spaces become a part of what your museum offers. At least that's what we're learning on our end, because these are some of the things we're doing now are things we've always wanted to try, but we never had the time because we were in the building, like on the floor, giving tours. And now we have, you know, a little more space and we have to. Digital is our only option.
Do you find that it's faster or easier to produce digital educational experiences for students versus the physical on-site? Like, is it more streamlined, or are there some kind of obstacles right now?
Well, I would say it's about the same.
Okay.
It's the same because of the way that we work collaboratively in small teams within our department. So developing content for these tours, it's just not in person, but it's still like 3 or 4 heads coming together to like think about how we're going to talk about this work of art, what activities can best, you know, explain it, different grade levels, you know, all the different like core curriculum, learning achievement, you know, goals that teachers are trying to meet in their classrooms. So it's about the same, I would say.
Gotcha. Cool. And this question will be open-ended, but we'll start with Liz. As museums continue to direct their efforts towards producing and sharing a great deal of educational content and even edutainment, there have been some concerns that it might be overwhelming for schools and teachers and parents and students. What are some ways to deliver content that meets the needs of educators and students, and how can museums avoid overloading their audiences? It seems like this is a topic every single week, striking the balance. What's too much, what's not enough, what's too little, all things in between. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on that, Liz.
Yeah, I think it seems to be something that comes up a lot. Are we flooding what's out there? I think that in terms of thinking about how we're creating the content and how long it can live, and if it's kind of has an event around it that is of a moment, but then what can last for the long haul, because just because we're producing content doesn't mean it all gets used at the same time. So if we produce things in such a way that we can still refine them, resort them, they can be used and leveraged with collections, then I don't think there's a danger in creating too much, but I think that what we really need to think about is we can't create everything. So what are the priorities? And I think it's really, that's what at the O'Keeffe Museum, thinking about working with a cross-departmental team to think about what are the opportunities we can get out there quickly. I mean, we're only in week 6. So what are the things, like at the very beginning, what are the quick opportunities? What are the things that we can turn into projects that should happen, but they take a little bit more time and in a project team and things like that. So I resist that we can produce too much if it's done in a way that it can last, because it might be something that in 3 years we're putting together different themes and things like that. So just then about how we message it, how we get it in people's hands. And so that's part of the reason too that you know, we've started by focusing on things that we could get our hands on, things that were not so hard to produce, and things that could speak to a variety of audiences. Because whether, you know, like something is like coloring pages can be useful for a lot of different levels. And so, and then always trying to see what is resonating, what are we hearing back from, what on social media is getting play. So we kind of like use our ears or surveys or anything that we can to get a sense for what is actually useful to people and what they're looking for.
And is it safe to say that there might be a slightly different perspective on that if a museum has a permanent collection or kind of permanent fixtures versus you know, temporary exhibitions? Like if you have evergreen content versus non-evergreen types of exhibitions, do you see that as playing a little bit of a role?
I think it does, but I think it just thinks that that's where you know, I think thinking through what is the museum's content strategy, what should we be doing, what will serve our mission in the future. So I was talking to a museum yesterday who they had an exhibition that was supposed to open early April, and it's not going to people, but it had 28 artists, living artists involved. And so even though it's a temporary exhibition, they're artists from the community. So having Zoom meetings or that feature each one of those 28 artists for 5 minutes, that's like a month worth of content or more.
Yeah.
And even though that exhibition isn't going to last, those artists' voices will. So I think that's part of the thinking, is that if it is a temporary exhibition, what will be a lasting kind of tie back to what your museum or institution is trying to offer the community in general.
Well, let's dig a little bit more deeply into that. We have a question from Carrie Gill at the Woodstock Museum in Bethel, New York. What do teachers want? And she wants to know lesson plans, vocabulary sheets, games, slideshows, virtual exhibitions downloaded or used. What's most popular right now?
Whew, that's a tough one. I would say they want everything. And the reason I say that is because there are so many different platforms that are being used by different educators, and also so many different grade levels that are trying to be taught now online. What a kindergarten classroom or even a 3rd grade classroom needs is going to be vastly different than what a 9th grade or, you know, middle school classroom might need. Also depends on the teacher's level of you know, like digital proficiency. And also there's, you know, like learning online can be multi-tiered. So you can have a video that is then accompanied by a lesson plan. Then there can be some reading online as well. So I think it has to be kind of a mix. And then was this particularly for teachers? Yeah, I think a mix. So if there's no silver bullet.
Yeah.
I hate to say it like that.
No. And Liz, what do you think about it?
I also think part of this is just, it's so different community by community, is that ask them. So I know that our education department at the O'Keeffe Museum is working with the Community Educators Network, which is a group of educators in the area. And so through that educator network are asking teachers, because I think that is, it can be very different depending. And so really it's an opportunity to find ways to engage the teachers, because they're looking for help and you know, trying to figure this out just like we are. And so asking them, and then also I think thinking through, at least I think this is something that we're thinking through too, is that there's you know, this at home learning right now, it's just so much. All the parents are at home working, all of the kids are, and so I think that the role, and this is more my direct opinion, it may not be the opinion of everyone at my institution, is that there's also a value in us maintaining the role that we have in informal education and providing that fun aspect. So, and also thinking through, well, how do our digital resources help people get away from the screen? Because there's so much screen time now.
Yeah.
So I think that those are also things to think about, positioning where efforts go, as far as like it might be that what can we offer teachers? Something that's not school, you know, it could be. So, you know, thinking broadly, but also just asking people.
That's great. That's great advice. It's always helpful to rather than to assume, to ask. And on the topic of different types of educational material, I want to give a hat tip. I actually pulled over a hat. So I can give a little bit of a hat tip to Sarah Jenks over at the Ford's Theater Society in Washington, D.C., and the entire AAM EdCom steering committee, for that matter. They've put together an incredible repository of distance learning programs and resources, including about 450 items with participation from about 100 institutions. So I just wanted to give that quick shout out. And Liz, you've mentioned one of your top goals right now is staying community centered. What does that mean exactly when there are no physical spaces to gather in?
Yeah, I think our the O'Keefe in general, we want to be community focused and think about what we need to do, even when we had our doors open, what we can do to be more of that, because we're a very Santa Fe is a tourist destination, and so a lot of our visitorship is tourism, and so it's one of our in general, besides just in this moment, one of the things we want to make sure that we're good neighbors and that we are an integral part of what makes the community of Santa Fe amazing. And so in this time, so that's a goal in general. But as we do this kind of transition right now, and as Marie and as I'm sure everyone on this webinar, yeah, there's ideas galore, right? So thinking through what are the ideas, like how can we decide what to do? So employing more of that why into, and what makes a difference and what can make an impact. And again, this is something that we always want to do with our programs anyway. Also, everyday life is going on with during when the museum's open. So this is actually, this disruptive moment can be, are we living up to that? And how can we think about all of these options? What are we at this institution and our mission, our goals best able to deliver upon? And how can that make the most impact? And as we know, also just thinking through, and I know there's been a lot of talk about the different needs that there's always a whole Maslow's triangle of needs, from people that need food, that need mental stimulation, that need to be connected, there are plenty of people that aren't in fear of losing their homes and things, but they might be feeling a little isolated. So thinking through like which audience types we can, and how we design a program or a resource for those audiences. And each week kind of thinking, having a talk, because we also know this is changing week to week. right?
Totally.
Like every week getting together, like what do we feel like people are feeling now? And with you know, again, trying to look at those analytics, trying to do surveying to kind of get a pulse on what people need right now.
For sure. And Marie, can you talk a little bit about the process over at the Perez Art Museum behind creating content? Who's involved in creating the educational content? How do you utilize the capabilities of people across your entire organization to produce high quality content?
So yeah, it's a team effort. Our education department consists of amazing individuals. The core of our education team is our teaching artists, which are practicing artists with a art historian in the mix to keep us honest. And it's just a great group of people that are so committed to both education and maintaining their own artistic practice, which informs and influences the way that they teach. So the content for the majority of all of our programming, including the ones I've mentioned, like our school programs, and also like our family and gallery activities, which are things that you would do if you're at the museum now, more so things you do online. You can watch videos online and do them at home now. And just different ways to engage our audiences are crafted and thought about in this amazing group of people. And then within also our administrative staff, which includes an associate director of adult programs, Anita Bram, Grace Torres, which is our school programs manager. Let's see, Tamara Herrera, which manages our gallery and studio programs. All of these folks are also creative in their own right and thinking about ways that we can engage with our communities, connect to our communities, find out what the needs are, and create programming around that. So
Great.
I would say collaboration is one of the things I have learned in a very real way.
Great.
Working at this institution since 2013. It's been one of, I think, the most central ways of how we create content.
Excellent. And I want to add a question that came in from the audience from Jennifer Guild at the Science Museum of Virginia in Richmond, Virginia. Very much on this topic. So we have a lot of ideas from our museum volunteers, educators, scientists, astronomers. Everybody has an idea. And I'm really interested in the process part. Do you have any formal processes for getting digital content from idea to final product? Is there a project management app? Is there a meeting cadence? Is there an approval structure? Can you talk about some of those specifics, Marie? And then Liz, you're welcome to jump on into MBA style, of course.
Okay. Well, I'm glad Liz is going to wrap this question up because I think in the past few years, which should allude to my answer, do we have a formal process? Yes and no. I would say that our marketing department at the museum has done a really great job of creating a process for the creation of like digital materials for us to utilize. And I really want to just, again, there's so many people to shout out, like Alexa, she's the director of marketing and communication. She's all about like the process of how we submit content for it to be translated into digital offerings. So that's taught me a lot about how to streamline and keep things organized as we try to develop things. But we never had somebody that was like a digital kind of keeper and crafter of everything. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that's going to be like now with Heidi joining our team, because a lot of our digital platforms for educational content have been managed from within the department. Like our app, the Cuseum app, has been managed by our gallery and studio programs manager. And, you know, it's just like things just live wherever they would find a home. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I'll be taking notes on Liz's answer now on systems.
Yeah, so it's, one of the ways that we had systems before all of this happened is that we do have a project manager that was for the collections and interpretation division. And so ideas would, in the pre-coronavirus, we would develop ideas, and then they would turn into projects, and then we would kind of do team-based project management from there. I think with when all of us were home for a day or so and realized that, like, whoa, nothing's going to be the same again. This is not about just working from home. We kind of stepped up the effort on that, and I think it also just pointed to some areas that were perhaps not as owned, didn't have the same kind of governance structures, such as the website and things like that, where we kind of all, like, it was kind of co-owned, and so really looking at that. And so that's where we established a cross-departmental team that was specifically to look at how we change. So, and we call it Team Pivot, hashtag Team Pivot. And so that we're really kind of trying, like, well, not trying, then really upping the game with project management. We use a tool called Rike. I don't know if anyone knows that tool. It's pretty powerful. It's wonderful. It does a lot. It's a project management tool, but every project management tool is only as good as you use it. And so really thinking through how we use a project management tool to experiment and then establish workflows and then make them repeatable by people throughout the organization. Yeah, there's lots to say about that, but that's kind of how we're thinking about it, is that we've always had a commitment to project management and using the tool, and then now how do we really apply that to change who we are in the long run?
That's great. I'm so glad to hear your thoughts on the project management or the product management side. And I think you're absolutely right. The tool is only as good as your willingness to maintain it and to engage with it. I think truly we're in the golden age of product and project management tools. They're easier than ever. Whether you whip up a free version of Trello to easily manage that flow can go a long way. And then the methodologies. I've always been a big fan of minimum viable product, and I've applied that to content to say your MVC, your minimum viable content. How can we most easily get this out the door if it makes sense to do so at that time? So I want to give a quick plug before going into the next questions. I just want to take a quick moment to mention we've started doing a weekly digital happy hour called Muse, Zoos, and Clues. Anyone that's here is invited to actually be on the digital stage. We just talk about some of our favorite museum campaigns from the week. We do some trivia. We have some lighthearted fun and sharing news. I know we'll probably talk about hashtag Museum Sunshine, which went live yesterday. So again, to mix it up a little, the attendees are the participants, are on the stage, and if you're interested in participating, give us a shout. And also, I want to mention that due to popular demand and conversation, we're going to be collaborating with AAM's Museum Studies Network to put together a conversation on virtual internships. There hasn't really been any kind of convening on that topic, and we want to bring to the people who know what they're doing, the experts on the topic, to dive a little bit deeper on that. So jumping back into the questions, on recent webinars, one concept that kept popping up is that digital is no longer just concerned designated to digital departments. Rather, all departments, including education and curatorial and visitor services, are going digital right now. Marie, you've expressed interest in helping real life programs become successful on digital channels. And Liz, you've spoken more broadly about organization-wide digital transformation, hashtag Team Pivot. I'm going to check that out, by the way, after on Twitter, see if it's a real hashtag. But what are some of the ways you're facilitating smooth digital transformation? Everything around us is rocky. So how do you make sure it's as smooth as possible, especially around the education and programming across your museums. Who wants to take that on first?
I don't mind.
Go for it. Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks,
So I think what we started with first, thinking back to the first couple of weeks, was looking at what we already had and just sharing that. There was a moment I remember, I got an email from our school system, administrators in the visual arts department specifically, and they were asking about like, what can we share with our teachers? And for a minute, like I hesitated, like I was like, oh, but everything's not perfect. Like there's so much more I want to do, and I want it to look this way and that way. And we had ideas for further development, but then it was also like, but hey, we have some really good resources that are up right now. Let's start sharing those. Let's start adding to those. Let's work with what we have right now, and just, little by little, we'll build on it. Because what we have today, when the doors close, is what we have. Are we going to make a new website, in 2 weeks? Absolutely not. But can we make our website as good as it's going to be, or as good as we can get it within the next few weeks? Yeah, we can start working on that. So thinking about what we have, using it, and just sharing it in the easiest way possible. Like, how many lesson plans do we have up? How many slideshows can you look at? Then also thinking about, in terms of like more public programs, like what we're doing right now, like webinar talk style programs. You mentioned the Jerry Saltz talk earlier. Thinking about what's accessible to us, which is also part of that. Like, what do we have available? Working with our tech team to create programs that can like spread across different platforms. Like on the back end, our AV team has now figured out all these awesome hacks and different like different ways to connect our platforms to both Instagram Live and Facebook Live, so we can reach a larger audience. So I would say it's working with what we have for the now, and learning as we go what works, what doesn't. Not everything has been 100% successful, but we're doing something, and teachers, students, families are able to access the materials that we're sharing, and it's providing some joy, during this really rough time. So I think that's success in that regard.
Excellent, thank you. And Liz, I know you've brought up Team Pivot a couple times, and we're on the topic of making sure that the collaboration and the digital transformation is as smooth as possible. Can you talk a little bit about what this, mindset, this framework that you have for decision making and evaluating effort versus impact versus outcome at your museum right now? What do some of these workflows look like?
Yeah, and I just want to say that I'm sure that both Marie and I, it's something that we've always worked on, these collaboration, but like now it's like accelerated to 11. And so I guess that's what we're really interested in, capturing that momentum and making sure that it turns into something in the long run. So really thinking, we've mentioned a few times that there's just so many ideas. Everyone had ideas, but on top of it, there's two other kind of sides of things, is that everyone wants to help. Everyone wants to contribute to making the museum valuable to people in the community right now. On the same token, the digital team didn't get any bigger, and actually none of their work went away. So what we kind of started was like, how do we get a group involved? And so it's about content. So someone from education, someone from the museum store, someone from communications, and someone from our historic properties. And then thinking about delivery. So that's kind of the digital team. So the media experts on how best to deliver things in so you've got the content experts, the how to best deliver things. And then importantly, as I mentioned before, adding a process person to that team. So the project manager, who would have been very busy with doing exhibitions stuff, but we can kind of align to establishing this. So then kind of thinking about a framework that kind of is very simple. There are a lot of decision-making frameworks out there, but this is looking at impact versus effort. And then thinking through, if it's high impact and low effort, do it now.
I like that.
If it's high impact, but high effort, then it's like, okay, let's build a project around this, and it will be something that gets work done. So build a project team and build a way around it. If something is low impact, low effort, maybe. But those things that are in the quadrant of low impact, high effort, it's like, that's the little storm cloud. You don't touch those things with a 10. And so one of the things that this has been is like, we took all those ideas in the first like week or so, and with that team kind of evaluated it into those buckets. And aside from it just saying, oh, these are the things that we should do right away, and these are the things we start designing programs around, it also began discussions. Where are the holes? What do we not know how to do? What's missing? And then making sure that each one of those things gets assigned to someone, whether they're on the team or not. And then we all help to get something on board, and then building, like seeing how that project and make those repeatable workflows. And as I mentioned, so many people want to get involved. And so it's great because we try and make documents and everything. And then like, so for a member meetup that's happening on later this week, members can handle it without a digital team. For our webinar, education learned how to do it, and they can do it without the digital team. So that we're really actually going back to the last question that you had, where how do we all be experts in our areas, contribute to the ideation phase, to getting things done, and then find the best person to execute, which is going to execute that program in a repeatable way, and make sure that we get surveys and everything, and then talk about how it went. So it's been, what's been nice about it also is that every meeting we really talk about what does impact mean and how do we better work together to establish that. And in these times, it can mean a lot of different things. So it's been really exciting, and to be able to think about things strategically and then disseminate and work together.
That's excellent. So 2 things. I think that was the first Spinal Tap reference on our webinars. So Liz, I thank you for that. It goes to 11. These go to 11. I don't actually know how it goes, but English accent maybe. But thank you for that. And then I know a lot of people are going to be pinging us and everyone around looking for this quadrant. I think I was super fixated and like, did I just hear a Spinal Tap quote? Where as you were describing, I'm like, how can I visualize that? For folks at home, how can I visualize that process, that workflow? So Liz, if you could tweet that quadrant, I think that would help a lot of people, and we'll include that in the follow-up. So I know we have about 10. Thank you. So I know we have about 10 minutes left, so we'll try to zip through a lot of these questions. So if we could keep the questions very, very brief. Jennifer Saver at the Cedarhurst Center of the Arts in Mount Vernon, Illinois wants to know, as we put out digital resources, what's the best way to measure success?
I think
What do you think, Marie? It's hard to keep out a short answer, but
okay, actually there is a short answer. Success will depend on who you're trying to reach and what the purpose of that particular digital tool or engagement was what was it meant to do. So it's not, there's no blanket answer. Each project or program will have a different metric of success.
Excellent. And we have some questions that have also come in that have been upvoted over 60 times, which means there are over 60 people that are curious about the topic. No easy answer to these, but let's try to dig in. So Jasmine Turner at Jacksonville's Museum of Science and History over in Jacksonville, Florida, wants to know, what types of programming are you crafting for adults that will also be revenue streams? Since this is Florida, Marie, do you want to take that? And then Liz, you can take that after.
Yeah, sure. So this is kind of in my department and kind of starts to leak into our membership and development areas. We are thinking about programming that is made specifically for these audiences first. So perhaps like special talks with curators, or maybe the director of our museum that's behind some kind of paywall of sorts that is accessed first by the membership group that we're trying to connect with. So thinking about that.
Great. And Liz, are you doing anything at the Georgia O'Keeffe? Or are you seeing any other institutions try to develop revenue streams around some of their program right now?
I think it's an active discussion, and of what kind of programs will people can people pay for in these times, and then what is the price point? So it's definitely previous to this, most kids programs were resources and programs were free, not all of them. Actually, education would have a better answer for that. I don't know the details, so I might be getting that wrong, but adult programs were generally either membership based or paid. And just really thinking through, because digital is a different business model, and
For
especially sure. Like there's so much content out there. So I think it's something we're actively discussing, because if what could be, because also being community based, what are we serving to meet the needs right now? But we also have needs, the museum has needs, but in terms of what kind of then kind of support structure do you need around, and what does that cost? So as far as having tech support and kind of all of those kind of things, because those things also cost money. So I think it's actively under discussion. I see there about generating income in general. It's a big discussion. How do we, is it through content programs? Is it about a membership ask, a very strong and direct membership ask at the end of programs that are offered? Is it about trying to use the programs like more of a content marketing to drive other things? We definitely are thinking, I mentioned that the museum store is on Team Pivot. So also, how do we have artisan showcases that are actually in the store and have pop-up shops and things like that? So it's none of that all equals up to our old revenue streams. So it's that's the it's tough, but it's definitely like a balance in between what's actually making a difference to the bottom line as opposed to like the impact bottom line. And it's tough.
Yeah,
we'll be working on it.
Yeah, I mean, we've been watching a lot of that dialogue over the last couple of weeks, and we've been really hoping to see, pay what you can, pay what you please type of donation model. I know the point around the infrastructure is even quite difficult, but there are some ways to hack things together between Eventbrite and Zoom and other such tools. So we're on the edge of our seats watching for those efforts, but we also know how will those how will those compare to the commonly known or commonly accepted operating budgets and revenue streams remains to be the big question. So we have a question from over in the UK, where Spinal Tap's probably a big deal also, from Ben Templeton. This was upvoted, I think, 60+ times as well. What are your feelings towards a confetti approach? I have to do it that way. A confetti approach, lots of small, individual, easy to release learning activities versus creating a more strategic, unified, evolving digital platform for longer term engagement. It's a great question. Who wants to jump on it first?
The confetti approach. I think maybe if that's where you're starting from, it can work, but at some point you're going to need to start strategizing where, are you going to sort the confetti when it hits the ground? Are you going to have, how do you start to find a bit of organization in the way that you're developing these projects? And you might see that as the confetti starts to come down. So while it is important to do what you can initially, start looking to see if there's some sort of organization in the way that you're creating programs, because it will help not only you, but your marketing and your and if you do have teams of folks out there, I know a lot of people are saying they're working with smaller teams, whether you're a team of 1 or a team of 25, you're going to need to have some kind of organization around the way you share what you're doing. So it can work in the short term, I think, but not forever.
Yeah. Liz, what do you think? I feel like there's little whiffs of the idea of being agile versus waterfall, and that component, which I know that, you have a lot of thoughts on. What are your thoughts on that today, yesterday, and tomorrow when it comes to the educational content approach that museums should be taking right now or could be taking right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think confetti is kind of is strong, like, because confetti means like everything, like, whereas I think maybe thinking in terms of what are the, again, like how we're thinking about what are the easy wins, and some of those easy wins are worth doing and some of them aren't as worth doing. So it's a little less just pure confetti, and looking at like how we can do things now and see how they work, and finding ways to reach out and to assess what's working. So I think, yeah, maybe confetti is a bit too strong, but more like starting small, getting something out there, because then is it a goal to provide a whole learning management system? It may or it may not be. But also thinking that you can do some semi-sophisticated things with Zoom, the winner of the quarantine, I guess, because like so with Zoom webinar, we were able at the O'Keeffe Museum to put on a lecture program that connected people so people could talk, did a post webinar survey so that we could get in the qualitative feedback. It was great to be able to leave my home. It was great to be able to not think about this for a while. So each one of those things is also informing what other kinds of resources we might want to do. And then just thinking about things like, not to be a complete Zoom advocate, but it's what we have. And so we were able actually to do a video tutorial with one of our excellent educators, where she set up a phone on Zoom, and we had the TV on Zoom, and then I just clicked between camera views so that it could be a whole tutorial. It looked like a 2-camera tutorial. And, so I think that there are also like experimenting into, so confetti might be less, so more like, what do we have? What can actually get to where we want, even if it's in a lo-fi, and it doesn't seem lo-fi necessarily. So, just having fun with it.
That's great. And I feel like both of you have had as much fun as I had saying confetti and diving into that literally and figuratively. So I would like to make a couple closing remarks before we give our big closing question to Liz and Marie. But I just want to mention, after this webinar, we're going to compile everyone's questions and ideas and solutions that have been expressed in the chat and the Q&A into one living document to share with the community. Feel free to share your thoughts here in the chat, or email them over, or to tweet them, or to Snapchat them, or whatever works best for you at the end of the day. And I'm confident that your question will be answered by someone in this community. And the fact that you're here ultimately shows you're taking proactive steps and action in preparing your museum. We're all invested in the success of our individual institutions, but also the collective success of the sector. And it's a hard time right now, but we're in this together. We're going to get through this together. And that's, the most important thing. And so with that all said, we have one last question to each of our amazing panelists. Marie, can you leave us with one big idea we can bring back to our organizations during this time in the Department of Education?
Totally. I would say center the community in everything that you're doing. And don't forget that community includes you, right? You are part of your community's fabric. So I think any programs, any like goals, anything you're setting as an institution, as a department, think about how you are reaching your community, what are your intentions, and how this impacts the community. and move forward with that, because this will pass. This will not last forever. And the things that we do now as institutions will reflect on our missions, on our goals, and really reflect who we are as organizations. So I would say move intentionally and center the community in everything that you do.
Thanks, Maria. I think that went to 11. Liz, you're up at bat.
That was beautiful, and mine
That
kind
was
of
beautiful.
dovetails to a certain extent. Take care of yourself. You know, there's a lot of people doing a lot of things. Don't beat yourself up because you're not doing everything. It's been mentioned in many of these webinars that the great thing about our community is that we share and we help each other. Let's keep doing that. And in that, start small, do something, try it. Don't be apologetic for it being a start, and just try it and make it true to your mission and values, no matter how big or how small. But in the end, this isn't an economic thing, this is a health, and everyone here has different things going on with their families and what they're worried about, and health. So that's what really makes this complicated. And so be sure to take care of yourself, your colleagues, your community, and do what you can, but don't beat yourself up. Take care of yourself.
Awesome. Well, thanks for leaving us with that token of wisdom, Liz, and thanks, Marie. You both of you have been incredible. I really appreciate you sharing your time, your expertise, and your energy, I have to say, all in the name of the museum community, all in the name of art and culture and education today. So I wish both of you well, and for everyone who's tuned in to the conversation, thank you. And I hope everybody's staying safe and healthy, optimistic and happy during these really challenging times. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, everyone.
Brendan. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.